For the latest on the 2020 race, I want to bring on author and columnist Tom Del Beccaro. So Tom, yesterday the big thing that stuck out to me was the idea of trade. That is something that I think affects a lot of Americans. It was big for President Trump in 2016, even for a lot of Democrats. That's a reason why they were for Bernie Sanders for the primary in 2016 and even the primary in 2020. And now we see Biden finally being pushed on his support for NAFTA. Is this something that's going to really be problematic for him moving forward?
Well, you're right to focus on this point because the reason why Trump won was Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and it's those trade deals that you're talking about. Biden's not a leader on this issue. He is responding. He's in constant response mode. And in a place like Pennsylvania, where the Republicans have registered 7 times net gain the Democrats have lost 90,000 in registration. Republicans have picked up 70,000. The reason for that is the issue you keep focusing on, which is trade in the Rust Belt.
And building on that point, too, Joe Biden recently walked back comments that he initially made about fracking, something that also affects those very same states that we're talking about. He initially in the past said he wanted to do away with it. And now he says that he won't do so, that he's looking out for the middle-class workers in those states as well. But if you're a Republican and you want to win Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, those states, what are you doing right now in order to make sure that Biden's on the defensive? Are you saying that he is nothing more than a vehicle for the Green New Deal? Is that the type of argument that you're trying to make?
Well, it's pretty clear that Biden is walking these things back because the Green New Deal would hurt Pennsylvania the most of almost any state in the country because of fracking, oil, and coal and their exports. There's tens of thousands of jobs in Pennsylvania alone. It's the reason why Trump's going to win Pennsylvania. So if you're a Republican, you got to say, look, we have to have the right balance. The reason why there's more peace in the world today is because America is an energy exporter and we're not funding Russia and Iran. And you have to pick up on those themes and say Joe Biden would take us back to the days when oil was purchased from Iran, the world was more dangerous, and there were less American jobs.
It's such an important point because people forget that it wasn't too long ago where we were engaging in a conflict to some degree with Iran, and that would have been a completely different situation if we were still oil dependent on not only Iran, but the rest of that region. I mean, the Gulf of Hormuz is something that is weaponized against the rest of the world, but it didn't have the same teeth this time around because of that energy dependence that you're talking about right now. But when it comes to the Biden campaign and what they have to do moving forward as well, what is their economic message if they want to achieve? Because as of so far, Build Back American, I think is the slogan or whatever it is pretty similar to what the Trump campaign has been saying for the past 4 years. Is their path to victory essentially riding on the coattails of that strategy?
I don't think so, especially when you saw yesterday where Biden said he's going to raise taxes on corporations on day one. His tax increases are directly targeted to job creators. And so the economy is not actually going to work for Biden unless he picks up on the theme like Hillary tried to do, which said that the reason why you're poor is because they're taking it from you. That works on the left, but it's not going to work for independents this time. And keep this in mind. No candidate for president since Reagan has won promising to raise taxes. So Biden's promise to raise taxes is a death knell for his campaign.
Yeah, and it kind of goes along with the big picture that the Republican Party is trying to paint of the Democratic Party more broadly, the idea that they want to raise your taxes and become more involved in your lives. But I think that this is something, too, where the debates will really make a big difference. When you see the two candidates right there going head-to-head, talking about their two different policies and really levying attacks at each other. I think it's something that's not the beautiful side of politics, but I think it'll be more effective this year because each candidate has been off to their own devices, raising their own allegations. But this will be the first time on the debate stage where they'll be able to do so. But for example, yesterday we saw a Biden spokesperson who has not gone on too many adversarial interviews really buckle under pressure. Do you suspect that the same thing will happen for Joe Biden because he's been given the same type of courtesy of not being given too hard of interviews, and now he's going to be facing President Trump on a debate stage?
Yeah, and even in all the Democrat debates, there's only 3 or 4 times that he was challenged. Now this is a long debate, 90 minutes, where it's one-on-one with an adversary, and Biden doesn't get to have cue cards. He's literally using a prompter during his soft TV interviews. So his cognitive issues are going to become very obvious, and I think the race turns its final turn during the debates because it's going to be very obvious to people that Biden doesn't have it. and therefore his enthusiasm will dip and independents will move more to President Trump.
And I think it's worth noting, too, that President Trump is not your typical debater. I mean, I remember in the 2016 primary races, Ted Cruz, for example, who is known to be a master at that craft back at Harvard. Hillary Clinton, too. I mean, she's no rookie, and neither is Joe Biden. But when you get on the stage with President Trump, it's a different animal than they teach you back in debate school or law school, whatever it may be. So I think they're in for a rude awakening. I think you're right on that front. But Tom Del Beccaro, I really appreciate you coming on tonight, breaking down where the race stands in terms of the economy. Thank you.